Lyn Hernan was 62 years old when she was found deceased in her residence by Jessy, her caregiver, who was also her adopted daughter, on October 3, 2018. Jessy was the daughter of Lyn's best friend, Jennifer Flower. So she called 911 immediately after finding Lyn in such a terrible state. When first responders arrived at Lyn's home, they found her in a recliner with crushed medication on her hair, chest, and around her, as well as prescription bottles. There were no signs of forced entry anywhere. The officer present at the scene looked outside and checked inside. There wasn't anything to suggest any type of external trauma or struggle either. The officer was familiar with cases of overdose and had been on many of such cases in the past. There weren't any syringes found or anything like that. He thought that was unusual. Various types of medications were found in her system, along with tetrahydrozoline, a chemical found in Visine eye drop, according to toxicology reports. The Waukesha County medical examiner determined Lyn was poisoned and labeled her passing as an intentional homicide. Jessy claimed Lyn was suicidal and consumed eye drops with vodka on her own. Jessy, who was very close to the deceased, wanted people to believe that Lyn Hernan had committed a suicide. Everyone thought Jessy was responsible for her demise, but her defense attorney Donna said Lyn's demise was due to a polydrug overdose, a lethal mixture of over 25 to 30 drugs that she swallowed, and not from the tetrahydrozoline. Welcome back to Crime in Prison. Today we're looking at the pathetic case of Lyn Hernan demise and how she died of eye drop poisoning. By the way, Crime in Prison is a collection of narratives that delve into the world of crime, punishment, and redemption. The best way to support me is by subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment. So if you want to see more stories like this, please hit subscribe. It will really help with the algorithm. Now let's get right down to it. Lyn lived alone at her home. She had no children of her own. Her parents were deceased, but they left her a fair amount of money. She had a small but close group of friends. The two distinct groups of friends were, on one hand, Jessy and her mother, Jennifer Flower, who was Lyn's best friend. Because she had no children of her own, she adopted Jessy, Jennifer Flower's daughter. The other group of friends Lyn had were Keith Lang, Jim Kellerer, Kareem Posa, and Anthony Posa. Lyn Hernan also adopted Kareem Posa's son, Anthony. Lyn was also a cat lover. On October 3rd, when police come and talk to Jessy about the unfortunate incidents, they asked her point blank if she thought Lyn committed suicide, and her answer was that she didn't really know. She said she didn't think Lyn would have left her cats alone to suffer. Anthony, Jim, and Kareem also testified that Lyn was a person who didn't just love her cats like many people. She loved her cats dearly, and she was not going to leave her cats alone to fend for themselves, or let somebody else come in and take care of the cats. It was also gathered that Lyn also hated technology. She didn't own a computer. She didn't even own a smartphone. She used a flip phone whenever she had to. She didn't use email and had no email address of her own. She had no way of checking it even if she wanted to. She didn't even know how to check it. She just wasn't interested in technology. When she paid bills, it was with cash or over the phone, making transfers through the bank or going in person to a branch and making a payment on a credit card or utility bill. Lyn was not a person who would go online for any transaction or pay any bill. She was not checking her credit card statements online either. She was not checking emails at all. She was doing nothing on computer or on any other device to access the internet. Jessy, her adopted daughter and caregiver, was close to her enough to know all the intricacies of Lyn's daily life, habits, and behaviors. But she lost her life suddenly at only 62. How did this happen? Everyone wanted to know. On October of 2018, the death investigation, which was very normal for anyone found deceased outside of a hospital setting, was conducted. Initially, people on the scene of the incidents thought it was a suicide because there were no signs of foul play. A medical examiner with over 35 years of experience determined the manner of death in Lyn's case to be homicide, and that the cause of demise was tetrahydrozoline poisoning. She came to this conclusion after months and months of meticulous researches and investigation. Tetrahydrozoline effects on the body when it's ingested is deadly. After examining several toxicology reports, she concluded the crime scene looked staged. She had been to a number of drug overdose cases scenes, and she was sure that Lyn's suicide scene was staged. She said people who legitimately overdose on drugs and end up losing their lives do not have piles of powder sitting on their chest. They don't have powder and pill fragments up in their hair. They don't have pills lying everywhere. They ingest everything. They usually don't leave anything behind. She knew something wasn't adding up when she saw the pictures of the initial crime scene. Samples were taken from the body of the deceased, and those samples are ultimately tested. After a thorough investigation, it was concluded that tetrahydrozoline, an over-the-counter medication, was the cause of her untimely demise. Tetrahydrozoline was not something that was expected to found in her blood at all. It was not something any of the detectives knew was even going to be screened for. It was not something the medical examiner knew to screen for initially, and it was also something Jessy didn't know anyone would bother to look for in Lyn's blood. She was sure they would never think about it. Tetrahydrozoline is a sedative. It's a substance that when used as approved for eye drops or nasal spray, it helps people who have nasal congestion breathe well, and it helps with redness in the eyes. It is not approved for oral use. It was never meant to be ingested. It's odorless. It's tasteless. You can give it to someone without them ever knowing it. It can reduce inhibitions. It causes someone to be lethargic. It has a significant impact when swallowed in large amounts. In fact, it shouldn't be in anyone's system. It's a central nervous system depressant. So ultimately it affects breathing, heart rate, and brain functioning, and can lead to a fatal end. The medical examiner said Lyn had a fatal dose of tetrahydrozoline, the main ingredient found in eye drops, and there wasn't any other drug in her blood. She concluded it was a homicide and the cause was tetrahydrozoline poisoning. Although there were other drugs or substances in Lyn's system, the overall cause was the eye drop poison. Her demise was ruled a homicide. Prosecutors charged Jessy in 2021, 3 years after the incidents, with one count of homicide of Lyn Hernan and a second count of theft of over $100,000 for those theft that started from January 1st of 2016 until October 3rd of 2018, the very day Lyn was deceased. This really represented the theft Jessy committed while Lyn Hernan was still alive. And then the third count of theft Jessy was charged with was of almost $87,000 from Lyn Hernan's estate from the 4th of October, a day after she lost her life, until July 9th of 2019 after Jessy had murdered her. She stole from her both while she was alive, and after causing her to lose it. This was a perfect case of murder, greed, and lies, and a classic case of intentional homicide. Jessy's story changed a number of times during interrogation. She eventually admitted to detectives that she knowingly gave Lyn a bottle of water filled with about 6 bottles of Visine eye drop. She told detectives she knew it could very well end Lyn's life. But she gave her anyway and still left Lyn all alone at home. She went shopping, opened other credit cards in Lyn's name while Lyn was dying of poisoning. She didn't worry about Lyn at all. She opened a JCPenney account that same morning, and she was using other accounts of Lyn to do some online shopping. What many people didn't know about Jessy was that she had a criminal past before Lyn's murder. Jessy had past convictions for forgery, altering, and misappropriation of personal identifying information matter. According to Judge Jennifer Doro, who presided over her case, she said she was a big proponent and believer that the best predictor of future behavior was past behavior. That was not to say people can't change. But everyone knew Jessy targeted people, and from her perspective some were in a very aggravated way, because for Jessy it was really easy to take advantage of people. Jessy's first conviction happened in 2011, and she was incarcerated, but she was revoked once following being in prison for about a year. It was 1 year of initial confinement and 3 years of extended supervision on each of those counts. She was released in 2012. Again, she got revoked in 2014 and went back to prison for a period of 2 years and 2 months. She was released in late February of 2018. Following her release from prison, Jessy became close with Lyn again. She means they knew themselves before she was incarcerated in 2014. Shortly after Jessy's release in February of 2018, she reinserted herself in Lyn's life and she started stealing from her. That was the first instance of theft. It was soon after that Lyn got sicker and sicker. It was obvious Jessy was poisoning her all along. It is true that a leopard doesn't change its skin. It was difficult for Jessy to stay out of trouble. Lyn consequently ended up in the hospital in September of 2018, and the hospital could not diagnose what the source of the problem was. Eventually, she got better and was discharged from the hospital. Because the poison was not detected in Lyn's blood, Jessy became enamored and continued to poison her water with tetrahydrozoline to render Lyn incapacitated, so she could continue to steal from her to gain control of her accounts. She had deliberately targeted her. Jessy planted herself as a friend, but poisoned her water with Visine eye drops all the time. Jessy had access to Lyn Hernan, and it allowed her to steal almost every dollar that Lyn was worth in life. And knowing that she was going to be personal representative of Lyn estate because she made herself one, Lyn became worth more gone from this world than alive to Jessy. She transferred Lyn's property to herself even before the homicide between January of 2016 and October of 2018. There were 28 checks that Jessy transferred to herself and cashed. Lyn did not consent to those money transfers into the Jessy's accounts, and she didn't know any such transaction occurred. Jessy's intention was to permanently deprive Lyn of all her monies. The 28 checks were from Lyn's two different bank accounts. Over $144,000 was taken over a period of 2.5 years. From January 1st of 2016 to October 3rd, 2018, Jessy's legitimate total earnings through her jobs at various dental offices was $49,000. But her credit card's bank statement spending showed that her total expenditures was over $500,000. Where did she get all that money? She spent shopping and gambling. Of course she stole it was from Lyn's account. Jessy made two rather large purchases for herself in 2016. She bought herself a Jeep and paid for that out of this account, and she also bought herself some jewelry. Furthermore, in spring of 2018, Jessy was still living with her Scott Craig, her boyfriend of 3 years, until July 9th of 2019. When police interrogated him, he said he knew who Lyn was. He thought she was a woman that Jessy helped care for and a family friend of Jessy, but he never met her. He said in 2018 Jessy told him that Lyn was in a coma at the hospital in spring of 2018. And on October 3rd, 2018, Jessy told him over the phone that Lyn has passed away. Scott Craig said he believed that Jessy was at the hospital in Lyn's room when she made that call. He remembered feeling bad but ultimately not surprised because he thought this woman had been in a coma for 5 months and that it was sort of a natural outcome when she passed on. That was what Jessy made him believe. Jessy never came clean to Scott until July of 2019 when detectives showed up at his door and told him that Lyn did not die in the hospital and she was not in a coma for 5 months. Scott Craig was furious that she lied to him about such a huge thing. He said he didn't realize he was dating a criminal and a thief and ended the relationship. Scott Craig informed the police that said he woke up one day to a text message conversation from Jessy who went out the night before. She told him she was sick and felt like she was drugged at the bar. She went to the hospital and the doctors ran a test on her and found she had been poisoned with tetrahydrozoline. Jessy told him it was a serious case because the poison could have ended her life. This was before the medical examiners told the detectives the cause of Lyn's demise, and no one had notified Jessy. So Jessy knew that the Visine eye drop contained a dangerous and fatal poison, and she knew it could be fatal when ingested. This further proved she was responsible for Lyn's passing. That same month, July, after telling her boyfriend she was drugged and tetrahydrozoline was found in her system and that it could result in her losing her life, police went through Scott Craig's phone and Jessy phones and downloaded them. Lo and behold, on Jessy's phone between February and June of 2019, they found a number of documents that she deleted from her phone. The subjects she searched for on the internet were criminal poisoning, cyanide poisoning, and household poisons. Those all showed in Jessy's phone download that they were accessed from July of 2018 to April of 2019, before and after Lyn lost her life. On July 9th of 2019, when detectives now told Miss Jessy that Lyn lost her life due to tetrahydrozoline poisoning, she seemed shocked and then said she didn't even know one could lose their lives from tetrahydrozoline poison. Anthony Posa, Lyn's other adopted son, who was also a beneficiary on the will that Jessy purportedly doctored, had to sign some documents. So Jessy had to run everything by him, and he had to sign off on things before she could close the estate. He felt something was off, so he asked to see receipts, and a few weeks later Jessy sent him 52 pages of receipts and invoices. A detective went through each one of the receipt or an invoice that was given to Anthony. They found all the receipts were completely made up. All evidences against Jessy were overwhelming. Jessy filed another will that she called a real will. This will completely removed Anthony Posa as a beneficiary. Paul Milowski, the Register and Probate of the county, and Beth Taylor, an attorney who's done probate work for 25 years, said they have never seen somebody file a real will a year after, and they've certainly never heard it being done as a test, because that was what Jessy said. She said she filed that first will originally and that it was all a test. Because Anthony Posa didn't sign the documents she gave him the first time and questioned her, she decided to remove his name completely from the will. So she decided to leave herself as the sole beneficiary of what's left of the estate that she stole. In summary, between January of 16 and October 3rd of 2018, Jessy was able to steal $144,000 plus from Lyn while she was still alive and left only $52 in the account. Jessy got it to a point where Lyn, as of October 8th, 2018, lost almost all of the $250,000 that her mother left for her as her inheritance. Her second bank account was left with just $87. Now that she was worth nothing and her credit cards were maxed out, Jessy decided to eliminate her. Lyn was worth nothing, unfortunately, to Jessy, but her estate was valued at approximately $150,000, and Jessy wanted all of that as well. Jessy planned everything and executed it carefully. But she wasn't as smart as she thought she was, because everyone saw right through her criminal mind. The juries ruled the case as intentional homicide and found her guilty. Jessy was found guilty of 1 felony count of first-degree intentional homicide and guilty of 2 counts of theft of movable property. Jessy was convicted of 3 felonies. That means she may not vote in any election until her civil rights have been restored. The judge ruled that Jessy should have absolutely no contact with Anthony Posa or any family members of his. She should not gamble or have any contact at any casino. She is not to possess another person's personal identifying information, including, but not limited to, a driver's license, social security number, or credit card or number. She must have no employment or service as a caregiver, whether paid or unpaid. She is to complete all other programming as deemed appropriate by the Department of Corrections within 48 hours of this hearing. She is to notify her attorney, meaning Attorney Jones, of the location of Lyn Herman's remains, and within 48 hours of that notification, those remains are to be turned over to the state of Wisconsin via their victim witness, who shall then turn them over to Anthony Posa. She may not possess a firearm. That is a felony punishable by a fine of up to $25,000 and imprisonment of up to 10 years. She may also not possess body armor, and for a first offense, that would have a potential fine of $50,000 and imprisonment of up to 15 years. And for any second or subsequent offense, it carries a potential fine of $100,000 fine and a 25-year period of imprisonment. The judge said if she wanted to appeal, she had 20 days from the day of the sentencing to do so. The Book of Proverbs states that the wicked will never go unpunished. Thank you for staying with me till the end of the story. What are your thoughts on this entire case? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. If you appreciated our efforts, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so now and stay connected with crime and prison. By subscribing, you'll receive notifications for more compelling stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video with another true crime story.